Hey, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. It's the John Ross Show for 11/12/25, Wednesday. Wednesday. And today we're going to have retired Air Force Chaplain Bill Graves be with us, and he's going to talk military service, duty, and honor. He's really just going to do a little about his time in the military and the things we can see through the branches of the military. And we thank Bill for his service and all our veterans. We thank him for their support. Today it's 49 degrees outside, and it's a little, well, it's not too bad. 49, right? But we got 49 today. It's a little warmer than it was the other day. I think we had 34 or whatever, 31, what was it? Anyway, so it's warmed up a little. And so we're going to see Bill a little later here. And right now, I'm going to just bring up a fact that we know about in our community. I'm just going to briefly discuss the SNAP program and how we need to help those that are hurting and either bring gifts of food to the pantries or tell people about the pantries. Those are the two things. So, a pantry that we don't talk about much, but it's a very good pantry and a good friend is the Salvation Army pantry, and that is on Redwood Drive. I'm going to put that up, and that's on Tuesday in Aurora. Tuesday, that's one pantry, the Salvation Army. And we thank Major Joaquin for being with us on Monday and his continued work in the Salvation Army. And also remember Major Joaquin's work with the with the kettle, the red kettle. So remember, if you want to do a red kettle ringing and help out, register to ring is where to go.com. Register to ring.com. Okay, then we have other pantries. We have the Aurora Interfaith Food Pantry, which is another good pantry in Aurora, and we have several in Aurora. There's a lot more than these. I'm just highlighting a few of them. The Aurora Interfaith Food Pantry, and that one's on Jericho, and they're there most of the week, I believe. So check that out. I'm going to put up their materials here, and you can call them and find out more about that. They need donations, help, same thing. And during this crisis with our SNAP program. So that's another good pantry out there. And then the third one I'm going to highlight right now. Well, actually, I'm going to highlight another one too. The Marie Wilkinson Food Pantry. Now, Marie Wilkinson is on the west side. Both of these major pantries I just mentioned, the Aurora Interfaith and Marie, have other sub pantries around, and you can go to there. Marie's got one at East High School on Saturday, and they also have one uh, on 4th Street at our church down there on 4th, Iglesia uh, Verdad, Iglesia Jesus Cristo is la Verdad on 4th. So anyway, the Marie Wilkinson, that's another pantry you can help or tell others about during this time of crisis. So now we're going to go back and bring up our friend Bill Graves, uh, Chaplain Bill, and we're going to have a brief conversation with him about veterans. So I think you'll enjoy that. So we're going to bring up Pastor Bill, and he's a friend from First Presbyterian Church in Aurora. He's been in Aurora, I think, about 5 years. He's from St. Louis area, basically, but he's been all over with the military. So we're going to bring him up here. And let me see what I got to do here. I got to get rid of this. I got to get rid of this. So I'm going to go down and we'll be back at the end time and for just a little recap at the end. But here we're going to go with retired Major Chaplain of the Air Force, Bill Graves, and our little time together we had this afternoon. I had this interview this afternoon. Anyway, God bless. We'll be back at the end for a little recap. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's the John Rush Show. We're having a special guest that we're going to be interviewing here. Retired Major Chaplain William Graves, Air Force chaplain, and he's going to be with us. He's going to give us a little overview of military service, duty, honor, and country. We're just going to touch base with him. He's a friend from my church. We had him yesterday up at Kiwanis. So welcome, Bill. Here, I'm going to put him up here in 1 second. Here, he's going to come up here. There he is, Mr. Graves, Pastor Graves, Reverend Graves, Chaplain Graves. Just Bill.
Yes, just Bill.
He's all those things. This guy answers to so many things. And I know his wife says, he answers to. He's got a very nice wife. And they go to my church up in Aurora, First Presbyterian. And I'm going to show those pictures, Bill, 1 second, really fast here. Now maybe we'll I want to show those Kiwanis pictures real fast here. Here was Bill yesterday at Kiwanis Club. Bill, what was that in the background on that screen? You said it was. I forgot what you said it was.
It was that picture was basically a history of the manning of the Air Force. Since I'm retired Air Force,
Oh yeah, right.
I'm familiar with the Air Force and some of the history of how many people it takes to bring peace.
Right. And I'm going to show another picture here. Here's just, you can see our Bill in front of our Kiwanis band, or what do we call that? I don't know, background. Well, anyway, he's talking to us, and he had a nice time. We had a nice time with Bill, and we thank him for coming up to the Kiwanis Club of Aurora. So, Bill, you served in the military as a chaplain. Was it 20 years?
Yes. Yeah, I
And
spent 20 years in the chaplaincy, and I spent 6 years in the chaplain reserve and 6 years on active duty as enlisted.
then you were active for how many years? 15 or more?
Was all told, I was active 23 years, but when you count the reserve time, it was 28.
And you served in different arenas. One of them I know that was your earliest was Vietnam, right?
Yes. Yeah, I started out at Tan Son Nhut Air Base in Vietnam in November 1966. And in 1967, I moved to Phuket Air Base, which was up in country. And, our primary mission was to support support ground troops. And, plus we were building up. We started that base from nothing. And we built it up to be the probably third largest air base in Vietnam.
Wow. And then after Vietnam, you spent some time in college and getting married and seminary.
Yes, after Vietnam, I went to Shaw Air Force Base in South Carolina, and they immediately, sent me to Japan, TDY. To We ended up at the Inazuki Air Base in Fukuoka, Japan, and this was during the time when the Pueblo incident, where the North Koreans captured the ship USS Pueblo, and so Department of Defense responded to that, and I ended up in Japan working that mission to support the troops in South Korea.
You're a graduate of Elmhurst College, right?
Yes. Yep. After I finished my enlistment tour, I went to Elmhurst College and I uh, ended up with my bachelor's degree in history and physical education. So,
And
and
you
then,
told me the other day when we were talking that you followed your wife there, right, to
yes,
Elmhurst?
yes, I followed my wife. She had finished her freshman year. We got married between her freshman and sophomore year, and she didn't know it, but she joined the Air Force, and so she was we spent our honeymoon in South Carolina.
Okay.
She went back up to Elmhurst to finish her second semester or start her first semester of her sophomore year. I joined her in December, and I started in February uh, as a freshman at Elmhurst College. So graduated in '73. I did a 4 year of college in 3 years.
Well, that's very good.
So
And then later you felt called to the ministry, right? And that led to being a chaplain. But you went to, what
I,
was it, Southern?
I went to the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary in
Yeah.
Louisville, Kentucky, and
Yeah.
there I majored in Bible and in uh, pastoral counseling.
Okay.
And while I was there, I joined the Air Force Reserves and as a reserve chaplain, and um, so I didn't lose very little time, going from active enlisted to reserve officer. So so since that time, I was able to spend time with pilot training down at Craig Air Force Base in Alabama, and Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. So I got to see a com- completely different areas of the Air Force than I did when I was enlisted.
Okay.
So plus, I was coming at those assignments as an officer instead of as a as a enlisted man. So it was a it was a broadening experience for me.
Okay. Well, you've seen a lot of different aspects of the Air Force, and one I wanted to ask you was, I think if I remember right, reading some of the material that you passed around to me, that you got called. You basically thought maybe you were going to go to ministry more like a pastor, and then you got called to being a chaplain. And
Yeah.
how did you feel, or how did God call you on that? Would you say?
Well, I felt the call to go into ministry, and we discovered in seminary that ministry has a lot of different avenues. And the one avenue that I needed a part-time job in the summer, and so one of the other students said you should be a chaplain candidate since you were already in the Air Force, and so I joined the Air Force, and I had that summer was the most fun I've had. So I decided I might as well, since I have I enjoy being with people. And one of the things that I discovered as a chaplain is I can counsel people and there is no record of that counseling session. If they go to the hospital and they see one of the psychiatrists, they immediately have a medical record established, and sometimes those records can change their profile, so that they could some could actually lose their job because of what they were thinking. So my task as a chaplain was to bring them to a point where they could uh, deal with and correct any thoughts that they were having, because we work under the idea that thoughts are real,
Yeah.
and what you think is the way you act. So changing the way you think can change the way you act, and so that was one of the primary reasons I went as a chaplain. So to deal with the personal pressure that that everybody has when they're on active duty, and that goes across the board. That's the Army chaplains, Navy chaplains, as well as Air Force chaplains. We deal with the emotions and the thoughts of the members of our parish.
So you were the Protestant chaplain, and at many of these bases, and uh,
Yeah,
how did
I was a general Protestant chaplain,
yeah
but it's, there were times, for
you became
example,
a Catholic? Is that what you're saying?
well, what happened is during Mogadishu, I was at Griffiths Air Force Base in upstate New York.
Yeah.
Fort Drum had not completed their runway, so none of the large aircraft could land for them to deploy. So they had to come down to Griffiths for the deployment. So while they're in the deployment area, I'm going around visiting because these guys are going to war, and
Right.
President Clinton said, "You're going to go and you're going to find some bad people," and so I went in, and the chaplains already knew me because I had been working with them in different situations, interfacing with the Army. Um, so we went through, and these guys would come up and they say, "Father, will you bless my weapon?" So you're wearing a cross on your chest, so they don't know if that's a Protestant cross or a Catholic cross. It's a cross, and so I went to our priest and I said, "Father, what do I do when these guys come up wanting me to bless their weapons?" And he said, "Well, just you just say, in the name of the Father and the Son, um, you are here to do peace and to bring peace, and give confidence to the troop that is carrying that weapon, so that he can do what he's been trained to do." And so the whole time I was visiting, these guys would come up, and you could see the tension on their faces. And then after you prayed with them and you blessed their weapon, they were satisfied, and the line would get shorter and shorter as each prayer and each blessing was said.
Uh, it's
So
interesting. I want to ask you, related to just a moment more here on this chaplaincy, but how is that being filled today? Would you say, are they low on chaplains? Do they? Can you give any insight on today's chaplaincy in the military?
well, they're always looking for um, what I call the general Protestant chaplain, but there's a great shortage of priests. The Roman Catholic priests are in great shortage. So that when I was on active, they were short. They were short 200 priests, and
Really?
one of the reasons is the bishops don't want to. They do not want to release their diocesan priests to serve in the military. because when they serve in the military, they're no longer an asset to the
Right.
diocese. Um, so um, so the bishops, they have a shortage of priests as it is. So they're looking to say, okay, how can we get more priests to be on active duty? So in that light, I was often put into a situation as a, you know, I mean, no longer was I a general Protestant chaplain. I was a general chaplain.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I met the needs of Jewish personnel and Catholic personnel as well as Protestant personnel.
Well,
Uh,
God be with you on that. I understand God is there.
yeah,
And you were at our event yesterday with Kiwanis on Veterans Day. You commented about all the branches of the service. You want to do a little along that line? You mentioned that earlier to me that you thought you'd like to highlight some of the other branches besides, of course, your favorite branch, but we won't say. You know, it's the Air Force, but. We'll move on here now. Well, go. You
well,
want to highlight some of the other branches there?
yeah, well, the Navy is celebrating their 250 years of service along with the Marine Corps. Partial to the Marine Corps because our son just retired from the Marine Corps and he is now teaching tactics to the Navy uh, Navy pilots on the F-35. So he's more or less extended his military career to as a contractor from where he was as an F-18 crew member. So so the Navy is really they're the front door of our where we are in the world. The world sees our Navy first,
Okay,
um,
right.
and then our Navy is always in response to whatever situation we're trying to facilitate peace. And the I guess the phrase that we've always had is peace through strength. It's it's the it's coming from the musical Camelot. We are here. Our strength is for peace, and that's that we want more peace than we do war. So
That's
the
true.
Navy is out there with their different assets. Um,
Right.
you have the carrier task force led by a aircraft carrier, and there are a number of you know of ships on the line that support that aircraft carrier. So, along with the Navy, you have the Marines because every aircraft carrier has a host of Marines. And they have designated ships that carry Marines just so that they can be deployed in advance. Uh,
Okay.
so then you have, besides the Navy and the Marine Corps, you've got the Army. The Army assets. There are some of them that are really set up for quick deployment. They're, you know, they work in advance of any other major force, and oftentimes they're working with host nations. So if you're stationed in Korea, you're working with South Koreans. If you're in Germany, you're working with Germans. If you're in Italy, you're working with Italians. If you're in Great Britain, you're working with British. So in those overseas assignments, overseas bases, you're working with the host nation to provide security for that particular nation. So we have Army assets that are all pre-positioned with all those host nations that we have treaties with. So and then a lot of I showed one of the slides of one of our Army brigades exercising with Egyptians. That
Oh, yeah, you had a slide of that, didn't you?
that picture was taken in September of this year,
Right,
and showing that we were working with Egyptians um, in their different exercises that um, keep them up to date in, primarily in communications with with our assets. We call the three C's: command, control, and communication. And the communication is probably the first thing we fight for, and in any of the branches of service. And then the Air Force, my branch, um, I guess we discovered against Iran that we do have a long reach when we bombed their nuclear facilities. So, but it's always this. It's not a fear, but it's. I hope we don't have to use our assets more than what we've used already.
right.
And so, and then the youngest of our um, forces is Space Force.
Yeah, you had your Space Force, and then we have the Coast Guard too, don't we?
Yeah, the Coast Guard is actually a part of the Department of Transportation, and
Oh, okay. It's not really in the Department of Defense then, huh?
they're not a part of the Department of Defense unless Congress authorizes the federalization.
Right. Okay.
They have to be federalized to become assets to the
Okay.
Department of War. So, but right now, the Coast Guard, even though they're in a defense posture, they're actually a part of the Department of Transportation.
I did not realize that. And that Space Force, is that with the Air Force more or less?
Well, the Space Force is all by themselves.
Okay.
President Trump
Right.
had asked Congress to establish them as an independent force, like the Army, the Navy. Now, Space Force, their primary mission is space safety, and in the event they're responsible for a lot of the um, space shoots, particularly when we're dealing with putting satellites that are sort of in surveillance. If you look at your phone, you pick up your phone and you put in your address, no matter where you are, you put in your address, Google is going to pinpoint where your house is.
Right.
And that is part of the residuals of the Department of Defense. So if Google can find your house,
I'm in an apartment, so I'm all right. Go on. I get your drift. Yeah, go on. They
that
can find
that's
us.
what Space Force is enabling. Space Force is putting satellites in the sky that can surveil, and they're also responsible for all the space junk. They have an eye on all the space junk. We used to put stuff, fire a missile into the to launch a satellite, and the booster and everything else is in orbit around the Earth, waiting for them to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere and burn themselves up. I guess the best example was Space Lab. If you remember when Space Lab re-entered the atmosphere,
Right.
everybody was afraid it was going to land in somebody's city. Well, the Space Force now is responsible for watching that those kinds of events don't happen.
Okay.
So,
I'm
but
going to have to cut this shorter because this taping can only be so long. It's a long story. It's a technical reason. I'm sorry. We're getting technical here, but I think you highlighted. I think the Army was the largest, Navy, Air Force, then the Space Force would be the smallest,
the
right?
smallest, yes.
And the Army and the Navy were pretty close maybe, and the Air Force is just a little lower, right?
Yes. Yeah, right now there's 300, I think 312,000 on active duty with the Air Force. That's officers and enlisted. And I think
So
that,
we got a good sized military. It's a volunteer military, and we
and
can talk more about this another time. But so many things to talk about here. But I thank Pastor Bill for being with me today, and we appreciate his service to our country and as being a chaplain, helping and giving God's grace to our soldiers, our airmen, and just helping to be a man of God, and we appreciate him so much. So, Bill, I want to thank you for coming by for a few moments with me here, and we'll we'll keep on the faith here. We'll keep the faith, as they say.
mhm.
And thank you very much, Bill.
And thank you, John.
Yes. Here we go. We'll be back later. We'll show this interview later at 5. So we're going to show this interview of Pastor Bill at 5. So I hope you all appreciate that. Well, good to be with you here. We're going to say goodbye for right now, and we're going to be back on uh, Friday at 5 p.m. We're going to just discuss the week that's been. So join us at 5. We're going to just sort of go over the week. And next week, Monday, we're going to have Dr. Vincent Gaddis with us. Going to talk about Christian nationalism on Monday. So just keep the faith, and we thank you for our military. Thank you for the good people that are out there serving our country. And I thank you for the chaplains that are out there giving spiritual food to our military personnel. And again, thanks for retired Air Force chaplain William Graves, Bill Graves. Just thank you, Bill, for sharing there. So God bless you all. Have a good weekend. Have a good week. No, we're not at the weekend yet. I'm going too fast here. So anyway, have a good evening. We'll see you soon. We'll see you then on Friday. God bless. Bye bye now.